Remember that time when Sonic died? Yeah, it was awesome. Back in 2023 for April Fool's Day, technically it was March 31st, but we'll let that slide, Sega released a new Sonic game called The Murder of Sonic the Hedgehog. They put out a trailer for it on YouTube which seemed like a parody. At first you might think this is some sort of joke, but no, they actually released a video game. Now, in the game, Sonic isn't actually dead, it's a murder mystery party where Sonic is playing the role of the victim, and it's up to you to solve who quote-unquote killed him. This game was not a Sonic team endeavor. Instead, Murder of Sonic was primarily made by various people who worked on Sonic's social media accounts, along with some other Sega employees and friends. So it's not a fan game, but it was made by people who are genuinely passionate about the series. It's a fairly short game, it'll probably only take you around an hour and a half to 2.5 hours long to beat, but I think that's perfectly fine given that the game was only in development for around a year, plus the game started as a project made by a very small team. And the game is completely free. The game being free is something that I think helped get a lot of people to try this game out. So much so that The Murder of Sonic the Hedgehog is currently the highest rated Sonic game on Steam. I made a whole video where I looked at the ratings of all of the Sonic games on Steam. Go check it out. But yeah, it's safe to say that this game ended up being a success. So, I wanted to go back nearly 2 years later and see if this game is still as great as we all thought it was back then. The game starts off with you, the player, starting your first day as an employee on a train called the Mirage Express. You can enter in whatever name you want for your player, but apparently his name is Barry the Quokka. If you don't know what a quokka is, well dummy, quokkas are marsupials found in southwestern Australia, and apparently there was a trend several years ago of people taking selfies with quokkas because the way quokkas' faces are structured makes it look like they're smiling. Just a bit of trivia for you. If there's two things you can say about the Sonic franchise, it has great music and it'll always keep you informed about random animals you've never heard of. In any case, as an employee of the Mirage Express, it's your job to keep the passengers happy while your superior, the elderly train conductor, manages all of the driving. The passengers of this voyage are Sonic and friends, who are having a murder mystery party for Amy's birthday. We have our staples, Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, and Amy of course, who I'd consider to be the core 4 Sonic hero characters. Then we've got 2/3 of Team Chaotix with Espio and Vector, 2/3 of Team Dark with Shadow and Rouge, as well as Blaze, who was so bored of her life that she traveled across dimensions to stop by. Overall, I'd say they did a pretty good job of picking the characters for this little adventure, though I will say it does feel weird not having Charmy to complete Team Chaotix or Omega to finish Team Dark, as well as a lack of Cream to pair with Blaze. From what I'm aware, there were never any plans to include Omega, but there were plans to include Charmy and Cream, but because they were so young, the devs figured it wouldn't be right for them to join in a murder mystery party. I mean, considering Cream has gone on life-threatening missions several times throughout the series, and Charmy is a literal detective, I don't think a make-believe murder mystery party would be anything too crazy, but hey, that's just me. All in all, I do think this is a good cast, and honestly, it probably would have been a bit too much to have any more characters. Apparently, early on in development, there were plans to potentially have you play as one of the other Sonic characters instead of Barry. It probably would have been Tails, or if not him, maybe Amy. Each character is given a lore card telling them their backstory, and they each have a specific role to play. Sonic is a captain, Tails is a detective, Knuckles is a sheriff, Amy is a journalist, Espio is a poet, Vector is a butcher, Shadow is a locksmith, Rouge is a business tycoon, and Blaze is a titan of industry, whatever that means. Any one of them can be the murderer aside from Amy and Tails, because they are the ones who are trying to solve the case. One player is assigned the task of being the killer, and they have to kill, figuratively speaking of course, one of the other participants while avoiding detection. The participants get an hour to mosey around while the killer makes their move. After some time, the train speeds up, causing Amy, Tails, and Barry to get knocked out, and eventually they wake up in the closet of the dining car. This is where the game properly begins. Like I said before, this is a visual novel, but it's also a murder mystery, which means we're about to get Danganronpa up in here, or Phoenix Wright if you prefer. Apparently, Phoenix Wright and Chapter 6 of Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door were both inspirations for this game. You go around each area finding clues by clicking on objects in the area and using those clues in your conversations with witnesses. By finding inconsistencies in the accounts that the witnesses give of what happened, you can uncover the truth. One of the ways you uncover the truth is by thinking. When Barry gets stumped trying to figure out what happened in the dining car closet, Tails tells Barry to think about what Sonic would do in this situation. I never really thought of Sonic as an ace detective, but basically what this means is we have to play a minigame. Man, this really is like Danganronpa. It's a simple isometric runner minigame where the objective is to make it to the goal while obtaining a certain amount of rings. If you fall off the stage or you don't have enough rings when you reach the goal, you have to start over. I'm pretty sure these sequences all happen in Barry's head, but considering you play the minigame on this little game console, I like to imagine that Barry just pulls out a Game Gear mid-conversation until they can think of something to say. The minigame itself is fine, but I have two issues with it. One, I think it feels a bit unnecessary. Maybe they included it as a way to shake things up after doing all of the detective stuff, or maybe there was a mandate that there was running in a Sonic game. But I don't think this really adds anything, and the segments happen frequently enough that I think it does start to get a tad annoying when you're getting close to solving something and you gotta play what are essentially this game's version of special stages. I think in normal Sonic games, the special stages work, but with a methodical, thinky type of game like this, these fast-paced action special stages don't fit as well. The second issue that I have with these segments is that they happen after you give a correct answer during an interrogation. For example, in the dining car closet, there's a bookcase that fell over in front of the door out of the room. There's a big chunk taken out of it that's obviously the result of Amy hitting it with her Pico Pico hammer. Amy's hammer broke, and her being embarrassed about this whole situation tells me to prove that she tried to escape from the closet. I give the correct answer, that being the busted up bookcase, and then Barry says that they have to think to come up with an answer? I already know what the answer is and I already picked it, so why do I have to go through this minigame for Barry to know what it is? It just seems a bit odd. Like they're trying to complicate something that's not that complicated. The minigames are short, but they are pretty common. You usually have to do at least 2 to 3 per area in the game, and you get a bunch of them near the end of the game. I would have really loved it if they just stuck with the visual novel detective gameplay all the way through, because that's the most interesting part of the experience. Looking around for evidence, enjoying the fun dialogue, and exposing contradictions is what makes this game awesome. Another thing that makes this game awesome is the artwork. The backgrounds, while simple, all look good, but the real standouts are the character portraits. They're so expressive and colorful. The ones for Amy are especially good. She can go from, "I hope you have a great time at my party," to, "I hope you have life insurance." The portraits as well as the backgrounds have what looks like a filter put over them that gives the game a unique texture. It's nice. It makes the game have a softer, fancier look, which I think fits the Victorian era setting that the game is going for. This game doesn't have cutscenes, just images that show up for quick scenes that require a bit more than just static character portraits. It would have been cool to get some quick animated shorts like you occasionally get in some visual novels. Overall though, the game is visually really nice. The music is also pretty nice. Not anything major, it's not topping any best Sonic soundtrack lists, but it works. While we're talking about audio, unfortunately, the game doesn't have any voice acting. I think voice acting is a big plus for dialogue-heavy games, but it's not a huge deal. But now that we've gotten the gameplay mechanics, visuals, and audio out of the way, I think it's time we went deeper into the story. We left off in the dining car closet. After fixing Amy's Pico Pico hammer, she busts us out of the closet where we find out, oh boy, Sonic has been murdered. Even though this is all supposed to be a game, for some reason, Sonic actually looks like he might be in some pain. But who cares about that? Let's start looking for the murderer. Amy runs ahead, so we'll be going through this little adventure with just Tails by our side. First, we mosey into the saloon car. If the dining car closet was the tutorial, then the saloon car is what I consider to be the first level of the game. Knuckles is chilling here, and apparently he had some guests earlier, as there are 3 cups on the counter. One even has lipstick on it, courtesy of Rouge, who was looking for something when she stopped by. The saloon has a broken Super Monkey Ball arcade machine, which ended up in its unfortunate condition after Knuckles went ballistic and smashed the crap out of it due to him losing to Vector at Super Monkey Ball. Shadow stopped by and played the game as well. That wasn't the only thing he did, because apparently Shadow gave Knuckles a key and told him to lock the door to the saloon. Amy managed to get through the locked door due to a birthday key that she got from the conductor, which allows her to open any locked door in the train. That's all there is in the saloon car, so let's move on to the next area, the library car. The library car is where Espio and Vector are hanging out. We get a brief conversation with Amy before she heads to the next car. Like with the saloon car, Shadow and Rouge passed through here. Rouge was looking for something again, and Shadow locked the door when he left. Espio's alibi is that he spent the whole time before we came here just reading a manual for the train in the library, and Vector is the only person who can vouch for him. However, as Tails points out, that doesn't make sense, because Espio and Shadow would have seen each other, since Shadow passed through the library as he was locking doors. For some reason, Barry decides to defend Espio, so Espio just gets let off the hook even though he looks mad suspicious. They try to frame it as Barry is just looking out to protect Espio since Espio is a passenger and Barry doesn't want Espio to feel bad, which could cause the train to get sued. Okay. This is one of the only significant issues I have with the game's writing. It's like the developers knew that Espio looked super suspicious here, but because they needed the game's story to move along, they just said, whatever, don't think about it. One thing that I do like about the game's writing is how they handled Vector. Vector is such a great friend to Espio. Even though Espio looks suspicious, Vector's not gonna let you just disrespect his boy. He's gonna defend Espio until the end, and I respect it. But with that out of the way, we move on to the next car, the casino car. The casino car is by far the most unique of the areas in the game. This area is where Rouge and Blaze are vibing. Instead of doing a proper investigation like the previous 3 train cars, we're going to be doing a bank heist. The reason why Rouge was going around looking for something was because she was trying to find a Fabergé Chow egg, a really rare and expensive treasure. Rouge managed to get Blaze into her plot, and Blaze figured out that the egg is locked in a safe in the casino car. After searching around the various cars, Rouge found blueprints of the train in the library and a password to get into the safe where the egg is being held. Now, the only issue is figuring out how to get the Chow security guard's key card so they can get into the elevator leading to the safe room. We decide to help them because stealing is fun, and we all come up with a plan to steal the security guard's key card and get into the vault. All of the planning is done in these drawings that are done in Hirokazu Yasuhara's art style seen in various developer planning documents for the classic Sonic games. It's a really simple art style, but honestly, it's very charming, and it was cool that the style was used here. It fits quite well. My only complaint is that we don't actually get to see the characters do the heist. The screen just fades to black after we're done planning, and then bam, we're in the safe room. I feel like they could have at least given us some cutscene images like they do with some of the other important story scenes. We get inside of the safe and find the Fabergé Chow egg. Unfortunately, it turns out the Fabergé Chow egg is a bomb. Except not really. As mentioned earlier in a conversation with Espio about the train manual, the robotic helper arms in the various train cars do not allow weapons onto the train. So there's no way a bomb would be in here. So after a while, the Fabergé Chow egg stops ticking, and it opens up, revealing a super icy Chow chain. After leaving the vault, we try to get the train blueprints from Rouge, but apparently even after helping her commit a robbery, she still isn't up for helping us out, so on to the next car. Our next car is the lounge car, where we find Amy and Shadow in an argument. Apparently, Amy has a source for some information that'll help solve the case. We find our own big lead when we find out that this wardrobe in the lounge car is hiding a secret passageway which leads to the library car. This detail will be important later. Amy reveals that her source told her that Shadow was trying to trap Sonic in the conductor's car and murder him. By interrogating Shadow, we find out that Shadow never saw Espio reading in the library, meaning Espio is even more suspicious now. However, Shadow is still in the hot seat, as him going around locking doors is also pretty sus. Fortunately for Shadow, it appears that he's innocent, as the reason he was going around locking doors is because he didn't get Amy a birthday present, and he locked the doors in order to stop her from getting to the lounge car where he was trying to order tickets on a computer for Hot Honey, a band that Amy really loves. Unfortunately, he didn't know that Amy had the birthday key, allowing her to get through his series of locked doors. With that out of the way, it's time to go to the final train car, the conductor car, the place where Sonic was originally assigned to be before his body was found in the dining car. Amy calls everyone into the conductor car so we can finally get to the bottom of this mystery, though for some reason Sonic hasn't shown up. Turns out Sonic was legitimately hurt when he was quote-unquote murdered, and it turns out that the murderer was Espio. Espio used the secret passageway to move around the different train cars even with the doors being locked. He was instructed to use a blow dart with non-lethal poison given to him by one of the robot arms to murder Sonic. Espio used the robot arms to carry Sonic through the vent to the dining car, making people think Sonic was murdered there. Espio was also Amy's secret source. He lied to her in order to cast doubt on Shadow. Just as we're solving the case, Sonic gets up and fills us in on the full story. Apparently, after Sonic came to the conductor car and hung out with the conductor, he found out that the train was being powered by a flicky. Then Sonic was hit by Espio's blow dart. To make matters worse, the train conductor was kidnapped by the robot arms, and Sonic was beaten up by the robot arms in his woozy state due to the poison. Turns out that the train itself is actually a badnik designed by the Dr. Eggman himself. The train conductor was planning on retiring, and given that the train is a sentient robot that had built a friendship with the conductor for many years, the train didn't want to see him go. So, the train worked out a deal with Dr. Eggman to bring Sonic and friends to Eggman in exchange for preventing the conductor from retiring, allowing them to be friends forever. This is the second issue I have with the game's writing. Maybe it's just me, but I wasn't a big fan of how Dr. Eggman was secretly behind everything the whole time. I would have been perfectly fine with a low-stakes murder mystery party, but instead it ends up turning into just another Sonic game where we gotta defeat Eggman. In any case, Amy delivers one final blow to the train, stopping its reign of terror, allowing us all to leave while Eggman aimlessly waits for our arrival. I love the image of Eggman and his robot family. The story ends with the conductor saying goodbye to the train and saying hello to his lovely wife. Make sure you all find someone who looks at you like she looks at the conductor. Everyone enjoys some birthday cake with Amy, and we roll the credits. You can decide what happens to Barry at the end of the game. In my case, Barry stuck with the job on the train and practiced singing until eventually being able to afford to take a dream vacation to outer space. Who knows, maybe you'll see Barry aboard the Space Colony Ark. But there you have it, everyone. That was The Murder of Sonic the Hedgehog. Going back to it now has made me realize some of its flaws, like the ending being kind of a letdown, but I still did really enjoy the game. Just about everyone in this game is super likable and well written. Sonic is a cool older brother, Tails is an energetic ball of positivity, Knuckles is stoic with the occasional crash out, Vector is a great bro, Espio is a lovable tryhard, Rouge is hilariously obsessed with stealing, Blaze is the regal princess with a mischievous, thrill-seeking side. Shadow is a jerk with a good heart. Eggman, even with his limited screen time, is still pretty fun to watch. Amy is fantastic in this game, probably my favorite version of her in a Sonic game. She obviously still has a crush on Sonic, but her whole personality isn't that she's a girl who's obsessed with Sonic. Amy is lively and fun, she has her own interests like music and true crime podcasts, and she knows when to lock in and cause some damage. I also really enjoyed the original characters in this game. The conductor seems like a fun old guy, the conductor's wife is a loving spouse, Barry the microwave master is a fun character to play as, with all of that nervous yet excitable energy. I got a kick out of the running gag of Barry constantly checking trash cans, which eventually pays off in the lounge car when you find a picture that Shadow printed out of Hot Honey's website in the trash bin. I personally thought the whole train is a sentient being that wants the conductor to stay forever thing was a little poorly done. I wish we got maybe a scene or two of the train and the conductor actually interacting, but you do still feel sorry for the train now that it's going to be alone. Overall, this was just a great game with a lot of heart put into it. It was really cool to see all the little Easter eggs and references. A few characters bring up Spagonia from Sonic Unleashed. Blaze tells Tails to say hi to Cream for her. And even Big the Cat gets a cameo. It's hard to compare Murder of Sonic to the other Sonic games just because it's so different from everything else, but I do consider Murder of Sonic to be one of the better Sonic games based on pure enjoyment. I would love to see the team behind Murder of Sonic do another smaller scale game like this. Not necessarily another murder mystery, but maybe another visual novel or even a completely new genre the series hasn't tackled before. I was really hoping that we got a game just as good as Murder of Sonic for April Fools in 2024, but sadly that didn't happen. So maybe if we're lucky we can get something for April Fools 2025. I think that's about it for this video. If you're interested in watching more Sonic videos, here's a whole playlist of videos about the Blue Blur that I've done. That's all I've got to talk about for today though, so thanks for watching y'all, and have a great rest of your day.